Hot weather means sandals, flip-flops, maybe bare feet, but all that summer freedom can come at a cost to your foot health. So Dr. Jake Semon with Cone Health Triad Foot and Ankle Center is with us to talk about that. So let's talk about some most common foot issues that you see in the summer months.
Certainly. Thank you for having me, Tanya. So, things that we see pretty often in the summer can range anywhere from athlete's foot, just with that increased heat and moisture, blisters, cracked heels. But really, as we're getting outside and being more active, we tend to see a lot of overuse injuries like plantar fasciitis or even acute injuries like sprains. And you can really increase the risk of having these things happen to you if you're not wearing proper shoe gear as well.
All right, well, let's kind of go down the list there. You mentioned cracked heels, rough skin. What's the safe way to treat those conditions and to prevent those conditions?
Well, a lot of these skin changes kind of exist on a spectrum. So on the low end, starting out with any kind of unscented moisturizer like Lubriderm or Eucerin, if you've already kind of had this really develop on your feet, sometimes you may need something more heavy duty. Then you may need something like a salicylic acid kind of cleanser or something with urea as an active ingredient. Even things like Vaseline and Aquaphor can be really helpful too. And then again, even just protecting your skin, wearing shoes and socks can actually really help maintain moisture in your skin as well.
So if you put like the Aquaphor on, you should put socks over that.
Certainly, that can really help trap that moisture and help create a barrier so you don't lose that moisture.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's talk about some nail care. Let's talk about some top do's and don'ts for when you're trimming your toenails, because everybody wants to have nice feet with their sandals and they can paint them and all that kind of jazz.
Well, if you're like me, you really have to fight the urge not to try and pick and, be too invasive and aggressive when you're at home. You really want to make sure you're cutting your toenails straight across. Believe it or not, really, the more digging you do, the more corners you kind of round off or cut too short, you can really encourage your toenails to start growing ingrown if you're not careful.
Okay, and you mentioned at home. What about when you're at like the salon? Pedicure is super popular this time of year. What should we know to enjoy them safely, and how often is too often?
Well, certainly if you like getting a pedicure, you should get a pedicure, but there's a couple things that you want to keep in mind. Overall, going too frequently, I wouldn't go more often than 4 to 6 weeks. You really want to make sure that you're going to a reputable place where they have good hygiene practices. And you want to make sure also that, they're not somewhere where they're going to be too aggressive with your feet. A little bit of, gentle filing down of some rough skin is okay, but if they're breaking out some kind of cheese grater or like shaving device on your foot, that's probably a red flag that you want to stay away from.
Oh yeah, and I've heard people talk about that. And when you say, you want to make sure that they're following like guidelines like with a nail file and stuff, should they be using a brand new file on you? Should you see it come out of the package?
Ideally, yes, or some way where they're sterilizing it. You really want to be careful about reuse or anything like that.
All right, so you mentioned that you cut your toenails at home, so you do home foot care. You talked about making sure that we did them straight across. Any home remedies or tools that you think to yourself, you should not buy this, you should not use this at home?
Well, first of all, just as a general practice, at Triad Foot and Ankle, we end up seeing a lot of people who try to do self-surgery on yourself, so I really recommend against doing that. But anything that's overly sharp, you really want to be careful with. And then even outside of, just nail care, a lot of people deal with calluses. You want to be really careful about, aggressively filing things down. I would be really careful about using, a razor. I'd really recommend against doing anything like that to try and trim those down. It's very easy to cut yourself and increase your chance of infection.
Gotcha. Okay. When it comes to foot care, what are the signs that maybe we should watch out for that would mean, we need to go get our foot checked out?
So anytime you've had change in appearance, if you've developed pain that's lingering, if it's impacting your day-to-day life and you're losing, some of your function, your ability to walk or ambulate certain amounts, say you're, a high-performing athlete, if you're all of a sudden having pain with things that you like to do, whether it's playing pickleball, jumping, running, all this could be signs that you need to see a podiatrist. And even more so, we love to handle acute injuries as well too. Things like, any kind of ankle sprains, even fractures. Any of those things happen, it's a good sign to get in to see a podiatrist.
Let's talk the shoes and the footwear. Let's talk about some top mistakes that people make with shoes in the summertime.
Sure. First things first, everything is okay within moderation, but if you know that you're going to be doing an activity where you're going to be on your feet a lot, you want to really avoid shoes with poor arch support, a flat shoe with no cushion, even cheap flip-flops, that don't have any kind of backstrap. Those can really do a number on your feet if you're not careful. Another thing to kind of keep in mind too, some people may just have poor foot structure and may need some help no matter what kind of shoe too. Something like an orthotic may be worth considering as well.
Okay, let's talk about the whole matching the shoes with the activities. I've seen lots of people wearing flip-flops on a hike, and I know that that is not what you should be doing.
Certainly not. Certainly not. So, I mean, for a hike, being aware of the terrain that you're going to encounter. So, good rule of thumb, have some material that's somewhat breathable but supportive. If it's going to be more strenuous, a supportive boot that's going to be higher up on your ankle is ideal. And then, something waterproof is generally a good idea too, especially if you're going to be traversing some rivers, creeks, and the like that too.
All right, what about if you're doing a whole bunch of walking because you're going to an amusement park?
Amusement park, I mean, going to be on concrete, long hours. You really want like a good supportive, running or trainer or just walking shoe. Some things in general that I look for with a good sneaker are things like having a really kind of thick sole in the middle with a little bit of heel elevation. And really, if you were to kind of take your shoe and try and fold it over from toe to heel like a taco, if you could do that easily, it's probably not a supportive enough shoe for you. So all those things are things to keep in mind.
Yeah, because they show all those bendy shoes and this, that, and the other. Wear these for when you're traveling and whatever else. But if it bends, it's not good enough.
Certainly. And again, it's okay in moderation, but if you know you're going to be on your feet all day, you got to protect your feet.
All right, let's talk more about the flip-flops and the sandal things because that is the go-to. I know you said we could do it in moderation. What else should we be careful about when we're wearing those?
So, main things with those is, they're just going to, in general, lack any kind of arch support or ankle support. And if you're prone to being someone who overpronates or has a bit of a flat foot type, that can really, cause you a lot of pain. Another thing is, too, if you're wearing a sandal that doesn't have some kind of back heel strap, it's going to alter your gait. And over time, you can kind of throw things off, kind of induce some kind of soft tissue, tendon overuse injury. You really just kind of want to be mindful of how much activity that you're doing in those kinds of shoes.
Okay, let's talk about this because summer is like barefoot time. People like to go barefoot not just around the house, but they like to go barefoot on the beach and feel the sand in between their toes. And what do you say about that?
Again, there's kind of a time and a place, but you just got to understand that you can increase the risk of getting an injury going barefoot. Some kind of foreign body, stepping on a piece of glass. Again, if you're healthy and you kind of know you're in a good environment for it, it's okay in moderation. Certainly good to get some exercise that way with yoga and those sorts of things. If you're someone who, say, has something like diabetes or some kind of numbness in your feet where your sensation's impaired, you really want to be careful because you can pick up an injury quite easily and not even realize it.
Okay. So when we talk about like working out and stuff like that, I've heard about recovery drinks and post-recovery drinks, but now we're talking about recovery shoes or post-workout shoes. What is that?
So basically it's a type of shoe that, can really, again, it's exactly in the name, help out your recovery, but it kind of does so by helping improve circulation to your lower extremities, to your feet. It can really just kind of help, allow your muscles to recover by just reducing the fatigue and stress with weight and, really help out with soreness and those sorts of things and really provide pressure relief. With those kind of in mind, it's kind of a light activity sort of shoe, not something that you necessarily want to be, out of the house all day running errands in. But, after, say, a big run, big workout, if you want to be wearing recovery shoes around the house, I think that's a great thing.
Okay. And does it say recovery shoe when I go look for something, or is it like a sneaker thing, or is it more like a mushy, like sandal-y thing?
Going to be more of a mushy type spongy material overall.
Okay.
And there are various different brands out there. I mean, one brand that I do happen to like, again, just for that specific type, is a brand called UFOs. Come in kind of like a sandal flip-flop type variety, but actually has pretty good arch support, and you don't feel like you're kind of overworking your feet wearing them.
Okay, UFOs is what they're called. All right, we've got about a minute left. Final thoughts, if there's anything you want viewers to remember when it comes to summer foot care.
So main thing is just having just good foot health awareness. Any of these things that we've talked about kind of pop up in your personal life, or someone who has, whether it's getting out there and you spent a little too much time, in flip-flops and now your feet hurt, or you turned an ankle playing pickleball. Just keep Triad Foot and Ankle Center in mind. We really are the premier foot and ankle experts in the Triad.
All right, we thank you for taking your time and your expertise. If you want to watch this again, maybe send it to someone who needs to hear this. It's going to be in the To Your Well-Being section of our website.